All right, so here we are the day after Election Day, and what a blowout for the Democrats. I said my nowcast models that it looked like both the New Jersey and Virginia races were gonna maybe be at double digits, 10%. It surpassed 10%. So unbelievable results when it comes to all the elections. New York, what we had in Georgia was amazing. The results we had in Colorado, we had in Pennsylvania, we had in California have been excellent results for the Democrats. This was actually a huge blue wave, and we're only at the off year elections. But today we're going to focus on the two big statewide races, which was New Jersey and Virginia, because I feel at the end of the day, there's going to be one narrative that talks about all of them, but we have two totally separate narratives when it comes to why New Jersey went Democratic and why Virginia won Democratic. You know, Democrats can take solace in both of those results, but I have a feeling that the media is going to wrap it up into people didn't like Trump instead of asking where were the shifts at. So we're going to start talking about that because we're starting to get some data in from these states. Now, we might get more data and the narrative might change, but I just don't think it is based on what we're seeing so far. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with New Jersey, and then we're going to go over to Virginia and discuss what has been happening there. So you can see right here on the New York Times site, you can see that Mikey Sherrill won against Jack Ciattarelli. She won quite handily in that election, 56.2 to 43.2. Some votes are still coming in. Vote by mails are still coming in, so they're not all counted yet. So this was a big win. Now, if we compare this race to 2021, we're going to see a big difference. Now, let's go ahead and look at this turnout. 3,189,977. Now, let's look at 2021. 2,614,886. The turnout in 2025 is significantly higher, 21 or 22% maybe higher than it was in, for comparing 2021 to now. We've had a 22% bump in voter turnout. That voter turnout bump has mostly exclusively been from registered Democrats. And if you remember during my nowcast model, I kept on saying the numbers weren't getting closer. As a matter of fact, when we looked at early voting, a metric that I said that the Republicans needed to be ahead in if they were planning to win, the Democrats were widening their margins. So we are seeing that the turnout amongst registered Democrats in New Jersey was a big, big deal. So once we get more data, we'll figure out stuff and see if this narrative still continues. Now, I do want to talk about where the nonpartisans or unaffiliated voters are going. It's seeming like that there really wasn't a movement at all. So let me go ahead and show you a graphic that I have here. And this is kind of trying to guess out of the 7 counties that we have full data from so far, kind of figuring out how this all broke down. So what you can see here is the calculation is that if you take a candidate's result and you take away the partisan turnout, this is kind of a nonpartisan estimate. So for example, if you had a Democratic candidate that received 10,000 votes and the amount of registered Democrats who turned out in that county were 7,500, that means the remainder of that amount, assuming all Democrats were to vote for Democratic candidates, you'd have 2,500 left over. That's what that's saying. As you can see in this graphic, yes, the Democrats are a little bit ahead, but not much ahead. So you really have, when we look at this nonpartisan split amongst the counties that we have so far, you really don't see any type of change. Now, this could change once we start getting different counties that have different results. But overall in the state of New Jersey, we're just not seeing these big independent shifts. So if someone was a Republican leaning independent, it seems like that they continued that way. Democratic leaning independents seem to have gone that way as well. So we're not seeing this partisan shift. Pretty much, this was not a persuasion race in New Jersey. It was a turnout race. Let's go ahead and go to Virginia now and look at those results. So we can see the gubernatorial election here in Virginia, and we see Gail Spanberger winning 57.2%, much larger than I think a lot of people expected. Great night for Spanberger and the Democrats in Virginia. And also, the Democrats in Virginia are just a few seats short from the supermajority in the House of Delegates in Virginia. So it was a very strong race, and they were just a few votes away from actually getting that supermajority. They could have gotten that supermajority if just a few thousand votes had gone their way. So we're seeing Virginia change as a state. Now, what about turnout in Virginia? This is where it's not really different. So as you can see, as of right now, there's 3,357,283 people who voted in the Virginia governor's election. Now, if we compare that to 2021, we can see 3,288,327. That is only a 2% increase in turnout. So when we look at Virginia, we can't say, oh, it was just purely a highly Democratic turnout. Okay. In New Jersey, we can say, the Republican turnout was pretty much what it was previously. It's just that the Democrats upped their percentage. So their turnout rate's going to be higher. We're not seeing that in Virginia. So we're maybe seeing one of two things. And as the data comes in, we'll see how that is. Of course, we can't look at the partisan numbers because they don't register by party affiliation in Virginia. But we are seeing one of two things possibly. And we don't know which one yet. The first one is there can be a change in the composition of geography and turnout. So the question you have to ask yourself is, did the more rural counties that are highly Republican, if we look at this map, all of these counties in the Appalachia area that are very Republican, did they just have lower turnout? And then the Democratic areas had higher turnout, that it kind of still balanced out from what we had in 2021. That's one narrative. The other narrative, if you are a Democrat and you like this, is there is a partisan shifting. There's an ideological shifting over to the Democrats. And there is one thing in the New York Times that shows us that this might actually be happening. And this is our shift in percentages. So you can see all of those arrows like just shifting over to the Democratic side. And we'll look at some of the results here. Obviously, in Northern Virginia, you're seeing a lot of shifts towards the Democrats. So you can see in Manassas Park, for example, a 22% shift. In Loudoun County, you had a 12% shift. Now, I assume in Fairfax, you still had an 11% shift in Fairfax. So that shift could be because people are changing their minds, but chances are in these counties that are, pretty Democratic, there's just more of a Democratic turnout. And we actually started seeing that. We saw in many Democratic areas like Falls Church and other places, we saw that the turnout rate for the Democrats was equaling the turnout rate that the Democrats had, or the overall turnout rate, I guess I should say, since it's not by party, compared to 2024. So we were seeing presidential election year turnout rates in many of these smaller Democratic cities, mostly like suburban type of cities. But that's not where to look. Look at Appalachia here and the swings that happened there. Let's look at Covington County. Okay, so Earl Sears won 60-40, but that county shifted 14%. Okay, Buena Vista County, that county shifted 11%. Earl Sears won 66%. Okay, go down to Bristol. Earl Sears won 65%, but that was a 9.2% shift. We saw some major shifts. Let's look at Frederick County up here. Frederick County, 60%, 8.9% shift. Okay, I mean, this is a Democratic area, but let's see if we can find Roanoke County. Roanoke County, 6.5% shift, 58% for Earl Sears. So we are seeing an actual shift in partisanship based on these. Now, the question we have to ask ourselves is this a shift in partisanship because people are changing their minds, or is it a shift in partisanship because we've had a change in the equilibrium of who turns out to vote. That's going to be the main question. But if you're the Democrats today, you have two different narratives going on in New Jersey and Virginia, both of them extremely positive. You're looking at these results and you say, we can definitely glean something from these. This was very positive. It was, and this is another thing we'll probably eventually find out in the polling. Was it an endorsement for Democrats or a rejection to Trump and rejection to the Republicans? We don't know. But the House of Delegates elections, the fact that we went from having it basically a 50-50 chamber before this election to the Democrats almost getting a supermajority, it shows there's a big shift in Virginia. Virginia does look like it can be the next Illinois, because Illinois for a long time was kind of, we had Bruce Rauner recently as governor. We had George Ryan. We've had Democratic governors and U.S. senators as well, but now it's such a strongly Democratic state. Virginia's kind of heading that way. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and end that for today. We're getting more data in. I'm going to keep you updated with the data. Thank you all very much. This was a really, really great election night. Thank you for all who enjoyed. If you do like the work that I do, please go ahead and leave a super chat down below, the thanks button right below the the screen here. And thank you all very much. You can become a member as well or join my Patreon. So thank you all very much. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.